I think we even have the illusion that we will get out of doing the work because AI will do the work. And then when you actually start working with it, you realize that actually you still need a lot of your work to be done.
I think it's always very important to ask yourself, okay, is this really improving my teaching? Do I really need this? Eventually this kind of encourage, in a way, mediocrity, because you're just going to use what is readily available, and so you're kind of compromising your initial vision.
But the more you use it, the more you realize what type of work you need to put in.
So it's very important to understand what you're doing and also to teach our students how to use it and show them what are the limitations.
Hello everyone and welcome. We have today with us Clement, but I don't want to be the one introducing him to you. Clement, tell us something about you and how you got involved in Europass.
All right, so hi everybody, my name is Clement. I'm French, but I have been a teacher trainer at Europass in Lisbon for about 2 years now. I'm mostly teaching about ICT tools, AI, of course, this is a big topic these days, and also CLIL methodology, so teaching languages basically, because I'm also a French teacher.
Okay, so you are a French teacher and you specialize in IT tools, specifically artificial intelligence.
That is correct, yeah.
And this is exactly why I wanted to talk to you, and I wanted everyone in the Europass network to be able to hear his experience, because I think you can bring a very personal experience with AI. No? But can I ask you, how do you currently use AI, like in your everyday work?
Right, so I think I'm using AI in a lot of different ways that a lot of people watching us will probably relate to. For example, to read my emails again. Sometimes you really want to get your point across, but you don't want to appear as rude or anything. So it's always great to have this second opinion. I also use it a lot for my exercises as a French teacher. Sometimes you really want your students to work on a specific point and you run out of material on that subject. So using AI, you can really have a tailor-made exercise for your specific students. I use it in that respect a lot as well. And also sometimes I'm going to have an article and I didn't have the time to create my own questions for a written comprehension exercise. So I'm going to use AI to get some inspiration.
And what website specifically do you like to use? If, for example, you have an article or a text and you want to create some language exercises based on the text.
So historically, I had been using ChatGPT a lot, of course, but nowadays I really feel like Google is catching up, especially with Gemini. They have like really good models, and what I like about Gemini is that you can use it for free. It's slowly gaining ground in my heart, let's say.
And have you ever tried one of those like pre-filled, like Defeat? Have you ever tried any of those?
Yes. I've been using a lot of different tools because in Europass as well, we've been sharing a lot of tools, right? There are some tools that I really love a lot. One of them, for example, is Notebook LM that is created by Google. It's been around for some time, but I only discovered it more recently. And it allows you to really have a more personalized and tailored learning experience. You can put all your PDF, all your lessons into one place, and then you can create your own quiz, your own even podcast on that app. So I'm using this a lot. But yeah, I'm always being careful because I feel like a lot of tools, this is kind of a Cambian explosion right now. We have like 1 million companies trying to produce different tools, and they're all saying how great and innovative their tools are. And eventually, at the end of the day, maybe we'll get back to this, but I think it's always very important to ask yourself, okay, is this really improving my teaching? Do I really need this?
That's a trick question.
Yeah.
Yeah, is this improving?
Right.
Because I find that, for example, Defeat, it's very good if you need something very fast.
Right.
It's not excellent quality, what you get, but it's really fast. And if you just have a video that you want to show and you want to have some quick questions ready that goes together with that video, then is a great tool. But also recently they've changed the paywall.
Right.
And you used to be able to get much more out of the free version. And now without the premium version, the output of content is very limited. So
yeah, that's correct. It's always working that way.
Yeah.
One tool I'm thinking about right now is Magic School, for example. It's usually a huge winner when we present it to our participants. And every time I'm like, this is too good to be sustainable in the long term. At some point, they will extensively limit what is possible in the free version. So yeah, this is why also I think it's always good to have a certain way of working that is not specifically connected to one tool, because things evolve so fast that even if it stays free, something else is going to be maybe of better quality in the future. So I think what is really important is, if you're starting with AI, of course, like all those tools, I think are a great way to start and to show you the extent of what is possible. But I think at some point it's really also important to reflect on, okay, what do I need exactly and how can I do this with different tools, whatever they are?
yes, it's always a good idea to start with what you need and search for the right tool to serve what you need.
Yeah.
Because if you get excited about the tool and you bend what you want to make sure that that tool will deliver it, the outcomes can be mixed.
Yeah, exactly. I have this feeling, I don't know if you share it, but when you use AI in general, I think we always have a more or less good idea of what we want. Then we see the output. It's very true, for example, with image generation. Then you see the image and you think, well, that's not exactly what I wanted, but it's here. It's available, so I'm going to use it. And so, eventually this kind of encourage, in a way, mediocrity, because you're just going to use what is readily available, and so you're kind of compromising your initial vision, which is not what you would have done without AI.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So the thing that was interesting for me about your experience with AI, we all do a lot of work with content creation. Content meaning everything, from articles to lesson plans to everything. But we were talking about when you actually have to create in bulk large quantity of high quality content. Of course, AI looks like the perfect assistant, what you cannot do without. At the beginning, I think we even have the illusion that we will get out of doing the work because AI will do the work. And then when you actually start working with it, you realize that actually you still need a lot of your work to be done. And I think this is also what we mean when we tell teachers, because some teachers are really scared about how the AI development is fast and present in their students' life. So they feel because AI is there, the students will feel like they can get out of doing the work. But I think this is only true when you are a real beginner at AI. So you see the first outputs and you think, oh wow, I never need to work again. This can do everything for me. But the more you use it, the more you realize what type of work you need to put in. And so I wanted to ask you about your experience with this, because you have a very practical and solid experience. So tell us what you needed to create, how you thought you could use AI, and how you ended up using AI.
Yeah, right. So there's like so many good points that you've been raising right now. And one of them is, this wow effect that you have the first time that you're using AI. And you're thinking, wow, but the possibilities are limitless, right? And I think because we all have this, all these movies with, for example, this super evolved AI, and you ask something and it tells you directly, yes, sure, I can do this. And those AIs that we use nowadays, they're always like super confident. Yes, sure, I can do this. So you're like, okay, well, this is happening. But eventually, as you get deeper into it, and as you try to do something practical, as you say, then you realize that this is not as perfect as it first looks like. So to talk more about what I've been doing, so I have this website. And on this website, I'm helping students pass an exam that is called the TEF. It's a French exam that is necessary if you want to immigrate to Canada, for example, but also France or even Switzerland. And there's two things that are rather difficult. The first one is, of course, it's a proficiency exam, so you need to be good in French. But also the exam in itself is really tricky, in my opinion. So one way to prepare yourself correctly for this is, well, to practice, as simple as that, right? And I think whoever passed, for example, the IELTS or any other proficiency exam in English or any other language can relate to this. You need, at some point, this is boring, but you need to practice. And this was a big problem with the TEF, because there's just not that much resources available online or even in the books. You're going to buy a book, 20 euros, 30 euros, and you'll have one mock exam. So I really thought that it would be beneficial for everybody to have more resources. So I went on to this task of creating 6 mock exams complete. And so with the speaking parts, the writing parts, the listening and the reading parts. So the speaking and writing were not the most difficult because you basically have 2 tasks in each one of them. But for the reading and the listening, you have 40 questions. And those 40 questions all have 4 potential answers. And ideally, you would want also to have an explanation for each answer. Why is it the correct one?
Because it looks like, the perfect AI task.
Right.
Because even this is one thing that I always tell teachers in class when we talk about AI. I tell teachers, because the more open your prompt is, the more unpredictable and possibly low quality the output is. And so I always tell them, for example, if you have like a great lesson plan, one that you really like, that you really rely on, give it to ChatGPT and ask them to create a different version with a different topic or a different level or a different text reference, meaning that if you provide a model, AI can do possibly its best work. So this really feels like the type of task that AI could excel at. Yes. And possibly you would have to put very little work in.
Yes. So I have to say I hugely underestimated how much time this could actually take. Because, just like you said, I thought, well, if I think about it the right way at the beginning, if I give the right input, then surely enough, it will be able to write all the different texts and it will be able to write all the different questions and so on and so on. But then there are some technical limitations that I soon found out. For example, if the way those AI work as of today is you're giving them a prompt. And so based on those different words, those different tokens, this is going to orientate the AI in a very specific direction. And then once it's in that direction, it's always going to create text, for example, that are very similar from one another. And they will lack the vocabulary, for example, the different structures that you need that makes an exam unique and balanced and suitable basically to the candidates. So eventually this idea of creating 40 texts with one prompt and just say to ChatGPT or whatever, yes, please continue, yes, please continue. Well, you're going to soon go into a wall because you will have no originality whatsoever. And this will be quite mediocre eventually.
Okay. And so what did you do?
Right. So eventually what I realized I needed to do is to identify each step individually that I had to go through and make a different prompt for each one of the steps. Basically, almost never continue a conversation. Always start from scratch.
Okay.
So my first question was, okay, I have those 40 questions on one exam, but as I said, there's 6 exams in total. So I have to create 240 questions and 240 texts. So what am I going to talk about? Yeah. Because all of a sudden, this is a lot of topics, and you can think on top of your head like this about like 10, 20 topics. But AI really helped me at that time to brainstorm and think about, okay, I can talk about the daily life, the work life, family life, newspaper, emails, administration. So you start to make those big categories. And then from those big categories, you can refine and refine until eventually you have as many categories as possible, subcategories, I mean. And then you can put this into an Excel sheet. You can, of course, refine it yourself, which is a key component, basically, of this whole process. You always have to refine the process.
Can I just ask you something? Because this is a website. Were you interested about SEO and meaning do you wanted the text to be not detectably AI? Because this is something that, for example, I discovered recently, I didn't know about. Even if AI gives you a great result and you think, okay, this is perfect. If you need the content to be on a website and it's interesting for you, you have stakes, you need that website to come up soon in Google searches, then if Google can detect that the majority of the text on your website is AI, and they can do this very well, AI detectors work quite well. I wouldn't give major decision to an AI detector. So if you have an exam, if your students are having an exam, don't fail them just because the detector says the text is very likely AI. Don't base big decision on it. But in my experience, they work quite well. Mm-hmm. So was this an issue for you? Did you need the text to pass an AI detection test or not really?
Yes, this is an issue amongst others because, for example, there's also this legal issue, right? Because then how do you create the texts? So the best way, in my opinion, to create the text is to imitate reality. So to find other texts that are close to it. Because if you tell an AI, okay, write me a text about the benefits of not mowing your lawn, mowing your grass for the environment. Turns out it's very good for the insects and the whole biodiversity. What the AI is going to produce is going to be very plain, and it's going to have this tone. Even if you ask it to have this specific tone and so on, it's always going to be very plain. So you always want to have this original text, and the problem is if you take one original text and you pass it onto the AI, and you have a new text, we are in a very big gray area here because we can argue that I have been using copyrighted material and now appropriate it as mine. So I would say that, not being referenced on Google is a big problem, but another big problem is also, okay, how do I make sure that I'm not infringing any laws? So for that reason, it's very important to use a lot of different sources and then rewrite them yourself, really as a human. So once again, the AI here is going to have a role, of course, of helping you putting things together. But it's also very necessary that you're putting the work as a human here.
So at the overall, did AI save you time?
Yes. I'd say not only it saved me time, but it's not something that I could have done ever alone.
Okay.
The task is too great. The time it requires is too big. And this sort of, thinking outside the box of all the topics that you can cover and all the questions, because, okay, same thing for the questions and the answers, because I'm sure that a lot of teachers are interested in this. If you ask an AI to create the questions and the answers, as of today, it's better than it used to be, but it's still not here exactly. So same thing, I had to recreate the questions myself, but whoever has been creating exams know this. When you have 30 different texts or whatever, and you need to find original question and original answers every time, this is extremely energy consuming, right? And so having an AI that can like give you inputs about what you could do, it's very valuable. And maybe without an AI, I would have done like 1 or 2 exams maximum, I think. Yeah.
This is the interesting part for me, and the part that I would really like, this is the message that I want to make sure teachers get, because I really see a lot of teachers that are scared about this. But I think the point is that you could not have made it without the AI, because the effort would have been too time consuming. But on the other hand, because you did it with AI, it wasn't just a repetitive work that you had to do, but you had to activate other parts, and probably you learned more going through this process with AI. You learned more about the capabilities of AI, about what it can take on, what it can't, where it needs your input, that if you have just written all the exams just by yourself, it would have been very time consuming and probably less of a learning curve, if that makes sense.
Definitely less of a learning curve, definitely less diverse as well, I would say. I think this is one of the greatest strengths of AIs as of today, is like this, the possibility of thinking outside the box very quickly, finding different topics. And yes, but you're definitely right. Like, if I had one advice for teachers, is to really experiment with AI, because eventually this is the best way of understanding what is possible and what is currently not that great, let's say. Yeah.
I also think when you experiment with AI, the wow effect is great for the first 10 minutes. You can have fun, right? You can have the AI write a poem about your class, and that's super fun and everyone is amazed by the capabilities. But experiment using AI on things that you normally do and you normally use and you have a very rigid standard for. Because making a poem about your class is not something that typical teachers do very often,
right?
So that we can say if it's a good poem or a bad poem. No, it's just a poem which is better than what we would have had without AI. So everyone is like, oh, that's so fun, that's so nice, that's incredible. But what about your assessment? What about your lesson plans? Because every time I've tried using AI after the wow effect, you really have to work on your prompts. You really have to work on understanding how AI works to get some quality material out of it. And I love cooking, I really do. And with AI, I always have the same metaphor. And I think it's this: I love cooking, but if I cook in my kitchen and I am alone, I am limited into what I can make for one dinner. No, I have a limit of stove, a limit of pans, a limit of hands, and a limit of time, which is my own. If I am a chef in a Michelin star restaurant and I have a 20 people brigade in my kitchen, 20 very effective people in my team, then that capability is multiplied. But if I am the chef and you come to eat in my restaurant, even if I didn't touch with my hands a single piece of food that is in your plate, you are still eating my food. Because the chef directs the 20 people in their kitchen. They have the idea, they have the vision, they refine, they are critical, they give feedback, they build the plate in their vision, and their capabilities are multiplied. So having AI is like having a brigade of assistants that are very excited, very good, but it's their first day. They know nothing. So you have to have that vision. You have to know what you want. You have to know what you are looking for.
I fully agree. And also there's those tools that I've discovered recently. And one of them is called Maker, for example. The other one is called N8N. So it's more like for like techie people or people in the marketing. But basically the idea is to have those chains of different AI agents to create one final result. Okay. So just like your metaphor about cooking. So for example, the dream of a lot of teachers would be, I take a photo of all my students' essay. And then automatically, like there's an AI that is taking them on the Google folder, Google Drive folder, and then numerizing them and then correcting them and then looking at the grids that you have to correct them and giving like a final assessment. Let's imagine this. Well, as of today, the tools exist, but what everybody agrees to say is that it doesn't work. Because the thing is, the AI needs us at each one of those different steps. And especially when it's about correcting copies, it's a very personal thing. This is what teachers, are good at, and the AI is still not there. So yeah, I believe the AI cannot take good decisions as of now. And by the way, I've seen this study recently that said 55% of companies that have implemented AI regret it. So it's just a failure. It's going to work well, for example, if you are an e-commerce shop and you want people to chat with an AI for some advice. Why does it work? Because it's not a final decision. It's not pushing the final button. But every time that the AI has to push the final button, you get sometimes with a disastrous result that is often comical from our perspective. And we realize that, it's just not ready yet. So is it going to change in the next 5 years maybe? It's an open discussion, actually. A lot of people think that yes, a lot of other people think that no. That we are currently in a bubble. I do believe that we're currently in a bubble, honestly. But as of today, what is sure is that, yes, we need this human perspective at every important part.
And can I ask you do you have an AI fail to share? Is there one time that you used AI and it went very wrong?
And it went very wrong. Well, during this example that I was sharing before, I had a lot of failure because at first I was under this wow effect more than 10 minutes, let's say. And so I paid for like the best version of ChatGPT at that time. And I thought, okay, this is just me prompting it incorrectly. So I tried a lot of things. But what you can see is that the more niche what you're requesting is, and the more epic fails you're going to see. So it's always like this. So for example, to give a very simple example, as a French teacher, I want to create a grammar exercise, fill in the blanks, regular verbs, present tense. Like absolutely
as simple
as it gets. It failed at that time, at least. I'm sure that nowadays it would do it better, but it failed because it doesn't have this deeper understanding of what is a first group verb or like a regular verb. So it would put some irregular verbs at some point, because this is inherently how those large language models are.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest failure was me not realizing that I would never get to the results that I was expecting, because I was misunderstanding what AI could do for you and what they can't.
And I really think today that and very useful for teachers, but one of the most reliable uses of AI is definitely brainstorming. Like when you need a lot of ideas quickly, 20 questions about food, if you are a language teacher, now you need those questions, you need those prompts then. AI is great. Whenever you have to generate reliable content, you really need your teacher experience to back that up, to evaluate it, and to assess if it is good or not. And the AI hallucinates.
A lot, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, for example, on the contrary, these hallucinations, they were less of a problem for me with these projects. And so, for example, on the contrary, something that worked really well for the speaking part, you have basically a business ad, really short, and then the student needs to call this business and ask them questions for 5 minutes. So I needed to create maybe 60 different business ads. And so the AI was really good at, finding 60 ideas of business, and then finding 60 titles, and then finding 60 descriptions for those businesses. And then I went onto Canva, and then, for example, if it was rock climbing, I would just type rock climbing in the template. I found the right template. I put the title, I put the description, and voila. And I think I created 60 legitimate business ads in about 1 day. So this is a tremendous
time saver. Very streamlined.
Yeah. Very streamlined. Yeah.
I think that's the key to figure out. The more you use AI, the more you can figure out what AI can do well and what it can do for you. So thank you very much. I think it was very, very useful to hear. We're just talking with all of our colleagues now how it feels like now everything is AI. And the first effect is definitely that, but it's very, very important for us to send this message that AI is a great tool, and we need to learn when the tool is appropriate to use, when the tool can help us. Also, a hammer is a great tool, but if I need to trim my nails, a hammer will not be the right tool. So we need to still figure out which tasks AI can be most helpful for.
Yes, and I would also add that as teachers, there's been this talk about, what is our role nowadays? And of course, I imagine that our job is going to change a little bit. However, I think school is also about communication, collaboration, living together as a society. The role of a teacher is not only about sharing knowledge, right? It's way more than this. So in that respect, I'm not too worried about our future as teachers.
And also, to go back to my chef metaphor, you can't be a chef if you don't know how to cut the onions yourself.
That's true.
So maybe when you are a chef, you have AI. So when you are a professional and you know what you are doing, AI can be a multiplier of your abilities.
Definitely.
But if you do not have those abilities, that you're not even able to evaluate what AI produces, and everything will be very, very shallow and very generalist and very superficial and never of high quality.
Yeah, this is definitely a double-edged sword. So it can either be a multiplier, as you just said, producing things that you would have never thought about. And if you put no effort into it, same thing. There's been studies about this already showing that critical thinking, for example, can atrophy if you just aimlessly use it. So it's very important to understand what you're doing and also to teach our students how to use it and show them what are the limitations. Yeah.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Same here.
Same here. Bye everyone.
Bye.
See you on the next time.